We all know pretty much everyone in Game of Thrones dies. By season 4, it's less a TV show and more a very long funeral slideshow with dragons. Instead of sending thoughts and prayers, this video is doing something much healthier, ranking those deaths from "I need therapy after this" all the way to "play that again. Justice tastes amazing." Game of Thrones spoilers ahead, obviously. If you're still in season 2, this is your last chance to pretend people make it out alive. Ned Stark's death is the very beginning of the slaughter that is Game of Thrones. The show tells you mercy is a liability in Westeros. Publicly executed on Joffrey's orders, he's beheaded in front of his daughters after confessing to treason in a deal that was supposed to spare his life. The shock isn't just that the main character dies, but that honor and honesty actively get him killed, shattering any illusion that this story will protect the good guys. Qhorin Halfhand dies beyond the wall as part of a calculated sacrifice. Captured alongside Jon by the wildlings, he realizes the only way for Jon to infiltrate their ranks is to betray him. Qhorin provokes a duel, insults Jon, and forces him to fight in front of the wildlings. Jon kills him in single combat, earning their trust while Qhorin dies exactly as he planned, as a perceived traitor serving the watch. Jorah Mormont, the Old Bear, dies beyond the wall during a mutiny at Craster's Keep. After leading the Night's Watch into the Great Ranging, he's worn down by losses, starvation, and tension among his men, while they take shelter with Craster. When one brother openly challenges him, the simmering resentment explodes into a full revolt, and Jeor is stabbed repeatedly by his own men, collapsing in the chaos as the Watch quite literally turns on itself. Robb Stark is killed during the Red Wedding after breaking his pact with House Frey and walking into their carefully staged trap. In the middle of the feast, musicians switch to The Rains of Castamere, crossbows are revealed from the balconies, and Frey soldiers open fire on the unarmed Northerners. Already wounded, Robb is finished off when Rose Bolton steps in close, stabs him in the heart, and calmly says, "The Lannisters send their regards." Catelyn Stark's death is pure emotional devastation because it rips away both a mother and the illusion of safety in one scene. At the Red Wedding, she watches Robb get betrayed and butchered, slits Walder Frey's wife's throat in desperate revenge, and then has her own throat cut as the music keeps playing. Her final broken scream and hollow stare make it feel less like one character dying and more like the soul of House Stark being carved out. Ygritte's death hits hard because it feels like watching an entire what could have been disappear in a single arrow. During the wildling assault on Castle Black, she and Jon finally see each other across the chaos, sharing one last wordless moment before Ollie's shot drops her. Jon cradling her as she dies is cruelly poetic. The first time he fully chooses her is the moment he realizes he's already lost her. Oberyn Martell dies in his trial by combat with the Mountain after coming agonizingly close to victory. He wounds Gregor Clegane badly with his spear, knocking him to the ground and forcing a confession about the murder of Elia and her children. But instead of finishing the job, Oberyn circles and taunts him, giving the Mountain just enough time to grab him, knock out his teeth, and crush his skull with his bare hands. Barristan Selmy is killed in Meereen while defending Daenerys' rule from the Sons of the Harpy. After they ambush the Unsullied in the streets, Grey Worm and his men are quickly overwhelmed in tight quarters. Barristan charges in alone, cutting down several masked attackers with old-school Kingsguard skill, but is eventually stabbed multiple times and collapses beside Grey Worm, dying from his wounds after one last stand as a true knight. Shireen Baratheon's death is one of the most emotionally brutal moments in the series. She's burned alive at the stake on Stannis' orders, sacrificed to the Lord of Light in a desperate attempt to save his failing campaign. The horror comes from how small, kind, and hopeful she is, contrasted with the cold calculation of her parents. There is no justice or payoff here, only a child betrayed by the people she trusted most. Jon Snow is killed at Castle Black in a mutiny carried out by his own brothers of the Night's Watch. After deciding to let the wildlings through the wall, he's lured outside by Ollie with a claim about his uncle Benjen, only to find a ring of men waiting. One by one, they stab him for the Watch, leaving Jon bleeding out in the snow before his body is later recovered and resurrected by Melisandre. Mance Rayder's execution is staged, but not in the way the crowd expects. After refusing to bend the knee to Stannis, Mance is sentenced to death by burning as a warning to the wildlings. As the flames catch and his screams begin, Jon ends his suffering with a mercy arrow to the heart, turning the spectacle into a quieter, more human ending for the man who united the free folk. Stannis Baratheon's death comes at the end of a long, losing campaign. After sacrificing his own daughter and still failing to take Winterfell, his army is shattered by the Boltons and his wife hangs herself in camp. Wounded in the aftermath of battle, he's found leaning against a tree by Brienne of Tarth, who sentences him for murdering Renly and executes him off-screen with a single sword stroke. Balon Greyjoy's end comes not in battle, but in a storm on a rope bridge at Pike. Old, stubborn, and still clinging to his failed war, he's confronted by his brother Euron, who returns from exile full of ambition. Their argument is short and venomous, and Euron simply throws Balon off the bridge into the raging sea below, clearing his path to claim the Salt Throne for himself. Hodor's death is the moment the show stops being just brutal and becomes genuinely cruel in a tragic, cosmic way. As the Whites overwhelm the cave, Hodor sacrifices himself by holding the door, giving Bran and Mira just enough time to escape while being torn apart. The twist that "hold the door" shattered his mind years earlier makes his entire life feel like one long setup to a single heroic moment, which is why this death sits firmly at the "my soul needs a minute" end of the spectrum. Rickon Stark dies during the Battle of the Bastards, used as a living prop in Ramsay Bolton's mind games. Ramsay releases him and tells him to run to Jon, then begins casually firing arrows across the field, deliberately missing to stretch out the terror. Just as Jon rides out to reach him, one final arrow hits Rickon in the back, killing him instantly and triggering Jon's furious Doom solo charge. Rose Bolton's downfall is quiet, cruel, and very on-brand. After winning the North through betrayal and the Red Wedding, he's ultimately stabbed in his own hall by Ramsay, who hugs him as the Maester delivers news of a new heir. The casual way Rose is killed, mid-sentence without ceremony, underlines that he raised a monster who learned every lesson he taught about power and turned it back on him. Margaery Tyrell dies in the explosion at the Great Sept of Baelor in King's Landing. After cleverly navigating politics for seasons, she finds herself imprisoned by the Faith Militant alongside Loras, awaiting Cersei's trial. On the day of the trial, she realizes something is wrong when Cersei doesn't appear and tries to evacuate the Sept, but it's too late. Wildfire ignites beneath the building, obliterating her, the Faith, and half the capital in a single blast. Loras Tyrell's death comes at the very moment he thinks he's secured a path to redemption. Having renounced his titles and sworn himself completely to the Faith, he stands beside the High Sparrow inside the Great Sept for Cersei's trial. Instead of a public spectacle, he gets instant annihilation as wildfire ignites below, sending green flame roaring through the building and erasing him, the Faith Militant, and House Tyrell's political future in seconds. The High Sparrow's death is the opposite of the slow political game he's been playing. On the day of Cersei's trial, he fills the Great Sept with the Faith, the Tyrells, and half the city's elite, confident that moral authority has already beaten royal power. When Cersei never appears and wildfire ignites beneath the Sept, he realizes too late what's happening. Green fire engulfs the chamber, erasing him and his entire movement in an instant. Tommen Baratheon's end is one of the quietest in the entire series. After witnessing the wildfire annihilate the Sept, his queen, and the Faith, he returns to his chambers in a stunned daze. He removes his crown, walks back to the open window without a word, and simply steps forward, disappearing from frame as the camera holds on the empty sky where a king used to stand. Benjen Stark dies beyond the wall after rescuing Jon Snow during the retreat from the White Walkers. Jon is stranded and surrounded when Benjen rides in, wielding fire and a flail, and pulls him onto his horse. Knowing there isn't time for them both to escape, Benjen sends Jon away and turns back into the swarm of Whites, where he's overwhelmed and taken down off-screen in a final self-sacrificial stand. Lysa Arryn's death is as chaotic as her personality. After trying to force Sansa through the moon door in a jealous rage, she's stopped by Littlefinger, who calmly talks her down with a fake declaration of love. The moment she relaxes, he turns on her, tells her he has only ever loved Catelyn, and gently pushes her through the moon door to plunge to her death in the Vale. Pycelle's end is petty, personal, and very bloody. Lured away by Qyburn's little spies, he's taken to a back room in the Red Keep, where Qyburn politely apologizes before stepping aside. A swarm of child assassins then stab the old Grand Maester repeatedly with knives. For a man who clung to influence by flattering whoever held power, dying in a forgotten chamber at the hands of street children is a grimly fitting final chapter. Lyanna Mormont dies a true hero during the Battle of Winterfell, refusing to back down even when a giant white charges straight at her. Crushed in its hand and mortally wounded, she still manages one last act of defiance by stabbing it in the eye with dragon glass. Both she and the giant collapse together, turning her final stand into one of the most memorable, smallest warrior takes down the biggest monster moments in the entire series. Jorah Mormont receives what he's always wanted in the exact moment it kills him, and that's what makes it so heartbreaking. He dies on the battlefield during the Battle of Winterfell, desperately defending Daenerys from the Whites until his body simply cannot stand back up. After years of exile, betrayal, and unrequited love, he finally dies in her service, in her arms, making his end heartbreakingly loyal rather than triumphant. Theon Greyjoy dies defending Bran Stark during the Battle of Winterfell, completing his long and messy redemption arc. After helping lure the Night King into the Godswood, Theon and a small group of Ironborn are overrun until he's left standing alone. When Bran tells him he's a good man, Theon makes a final, hopeless charge straight at the Night King and is killed by a single, effortless stab from the White Walker's spear. Missandei is executed in King's Landing after being captured during Euron's surprise attack on Daenerys' fleet. Brought to stand on the city walls in chains, she's placed between Cersei and the Mountain as Tyrion tries to negotiate her release. When Cersei refuses and orders her death, Missandei uses her final word to signal Daenerys. Then the Mountain beheads her in front of both armies, pushing the war past the point of no return. Daenerys Targaryen is killed in the ruins of the Red Keep after burning King's Landing and seizing the Iron Throne. As she approaches the throne she has dreamed of since Season 1. Jon confronts her about the slaughter, but she doubles down on her vision of liberation. They share one last kiss before Jon quietly drives a dagger into her heart, and she dies in his arms as Drogon later carries her body away.